Good evening, everybody. We will begin our Board of Selectmen budget workshop for this evening. Thank you all for being here. I think what we'd like to do this evening, Kate, is to run through quickly the fire departments, not necessarily in great detail. Asked everybody last night to review those before this evening. I know we received some data.
There are statistics from the Darien Fire Department on the table.
I got mine.
Yeah.
So we'll start with, first in the book is the Noroton Fire
In
Department.
the Darien.
Is it?
Yeah.
There we go, yep.
Their budget is on page 115.
Okay, so I'll entertain questions or comments. I thought this was a well-prepared budget this year.
So this one actually goes here.
Yeah, and this is the one, if you look about just a little bit above halfway down the page, wireless communication services, you can see an odd budget number. It should not be a negative. It should be actually zero. So we do need to correct that. And it's on the list that we handed out at the start.
Which should be zero.
Yeah, what should be zero?
The one that says negative 1090, it should be zero.
So the,
So proposed.
Proposed number should be zero.
Okay,
proposed number is zero. Got it.
All right.
Yes, we combined that account with the radio repair and maintenance account at their request. But
okay.
really, it basically is a status quo budget. We made some increases and accepted their increases where we had been under budgeting them. This is, we're going into our third year now of paying the majority of the expenses directly, and I think we're starting to get a really good handle on where things are. One item of note here, further down the page, medical equipment, they are adding medical supplies to their engines this year. That's in their role as first responders, I think it's a good thing for them to have, and that's not a large cost.
Yep. Okay, and
The radio repair account is in what area? Capital?
Radio repair is under the contractual services. It's
Okay.
maybe about a quarter of the way down the page. It's up in the top.
Radio systems equipment?
Nope.
Radio
If you
repair
go
and
under
maintenance.
the very first group of accounts,
Sorry.
it's 3, 6, like the 8th
Got
line
it.
down.
Okay,
Got it?
thank you. Yep. Got it. And then the last thing was the source of grants,
That is our grant to them. That is an unrestricted grant that we give them.
the town.
Right.
yes. You might recall that we increased that grant.
Right. If you go back to in the actuals in 15, 16, we gave them a much larger grant.
Right.
And they paid things like their electricity, their water bills out of that. We're now paying those directly, and we cut their grant back originally to $5,000. We increased them all to $10,000 a couple years ago to give them some more money for things like
Recruiting
food,
activities.
yeah, recruiting activities, but, if they're stuck with a storm, that they can get some food for their volunteers.
Okay. Moving on to Noroton.
I was just confused by the budget drivers which talked about, these on page number 16, the very first one, motorized equipment, repair, maintenance increase driven larger than expected expenses for engine 32 and whatever L is. L.
Ladder 30.
Ladder 30, but ladder 30 is scheduled to be replaced.
In which year is it
I
scheduled?
thought it was 2019.
It says on 117, yes. Ladder 30 will be replaced in 2018.
Okay, I'm just reading what, yeah, thank you.
So I'll check into that, but if we haven't already put it out to bid, trucks take a good year to rebuild or to be built.
Developed now.
So,
It may not be coming.
well, it's in for fiscal 19, it is, but I don't recall having
They
seen the bid spec on that yet. So even if we, when we put that at the bid, it will take a while, so they'd still have to be repairing the one they have.
And that requires them to go to Board of Finance
Yes.
to
To ask for the money to be.
Yeah, they haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Okay, so the meat of their budget is on 119. And similar to Darien, like I said last night, we were combining the training services for firefighter one, combining all their medical services under the fire commission. Again, this is a case where, we're going through looking at accounts and trying to either increase them a little or decrease them to match the historic actuals. So that is the source of most of the changes.
So they don't have any firefighter one training anticipated in next budget year?
They did not, no.
Okay, just want to make sure I understand.
One thing they are doing, if you look towards the bottom of the page, firefighting and rescue equipment. That's for some rapid intervention rescue equipment, which I thought was a good thing to get.
Okay, no
And the
heights?
last one on page 123, we have the heights.
Do you have a question, Mark?
No.
Okay.
I answered it before I could speak it.
Did you do that with all the rest of them? Same story as the others. Where there are some notable increases in the tires, they are getting truck tires. So that's an increase of $1,500. They are getting 7 sets of turnout gear next year. And in the hazardous materials, they're getting some new gas meters.
What are those meters?
They detect gas that would be dangerous.
Okay, fine.
Can't hear us?
Can't hear this gentleman.
Okay.
Okay. If you want to flip to their capital, let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Start with Darien. They start on page 30. Okay. So they have some small capital, that's an ongoing thing, providing some of the smaller tools that they use, like a rescue saw, hand tools. They are also looking for CO meters to replace broken meters. That's a safety issue. Ongoing replacement of radios. I feel like we're constantly replacing radios all throughout the town.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They are looking to do some repairs to some of their trucks. I don't recall if they told us which truck, but we felt it was valuable to keep them on the road. And then they've asked for a gear washer, which I think is a good thing. This is it's a heavier duty washer, and it tracks whose gear is in, tracks when it went in, so that we know after they've been to a fire where they should be washing their gear
They're
that they
talking about
have
the
done.
turnout gear.
Yeah.
So I want to jump cut here because Noroton Fire Department has a turnout gear dryer in their capital plan. And
Dryer or washer?
it says dryer,
Yes. they do.
$7,500. But
Yes.
total project cost of $22,500.
They got some funding last year, and where Darien is already set up with all the plumbing that they need, Noroton was not. So they have to do extra work to put in a pump to discharge the water and power to where it's going.
Okay. So for Darien, does this mean they won't have a dryer, they just have a washer?
That is
Or
what
does
they-
it do both?
It's a washer.
Okay. Are they going to ask for a dryer next year?
They might. I didn't ask them if they were, but I can see what they might.
They got a clothesline out behind.
They better
They
hope
could.
they don't have too many fires back to back or else.
Okay. All right.
The things they asked for that I didn't put in were LED lighting for their apparatus floor. They were looking for an upgrade. That was a low priority on their part. They also asked for another thermal imaging camera. And I didn't fund that because they do have another one. So it is something that I'm sure will come back.
How old is the one that they have?
The one that they have, it was 15 years old.
Do you know the life?
No, I don't know what the useful life is 10 to 15 years.
Okay, but their priority was medium.
Priority was medium, and it's a question of, how many do they need it? I didn't ask them how many they have. I do know that would not be the only one they have. But how often do they actually get used, and how many do they need when they go to a call?
So I think we talked about this when we were reviewing the departments. We have two departments that did high, medium, low, and one department that did numbers.
Right, so that's one of the things that we want to change. We have some plans to redo this form next year. And one of the things will be that you've got a number of priorities,
Okay.
That'd be helpful.
But wait a minute, how do you number them? I mean, when
We
you
will
say-
instruct
Right,
them.
yeah.
With
We'll
number
give-
one being your highest priority.
Okay.
they have to choose?
Yep.
I'm much more in favor of high, medium, and low. Because trying to say we want this one versus that one, that's crazy. I think it just should be high, medium, and low. And the mediums and lows get deferred to the following years. Or you can do the mediums that year if you have plenty of room. I don't know, I've been through capital budgets before, and trying to do a 5-year plan and putting numbers on each one is very, very hard and very arbitrary. I think you end up with information that's not that useful.
So just counterpoint to that, the Board of Ed runs their capital projects with, I think, 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Yeah. Same idea.
Yeah. So, with the idea that, every year they hope that their Capital One projects get moved
done.
forward. So,
Do they have multiple, like, at a school, would they have multiple ones?
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So, same concept, really, just you're using
Just
numbers
numbers
instead
versus
of
words.
words.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
numbers versus high, medium, low,
Yep.
or A, B,
Yep.
C.
And then, it's, I think the Board of Ed has always done a good job that they keep their priority 2s and 3s on the list, and they do slide forward. From time to time, we've had things that were proposed and then
disappear.
subsequently not proposed.
Right.
So I think I appreciate a new system of setting those priorities.
And by having them, slide forward, it tells you that they're serious about it.
Correct.
Rather than we just, let's try it this way.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get it this year. So, I just think that it's a better way of trying to assess the priorities, rather than saying this one has to be number 1 versus 2 versus
Okay.
3.
Yep.
That's my feeling
Yep.
on many capital budgets, projections.
Okay. I think we're on to Noroton.
They also have small capital to replace their tools. You can see rescue suits, swiftwater rescue suits. Those are the smaller items. They're looking for, let me see my summary. They've been asking for several years for an exhaust system,
Oh, yes.
and so I've put that one forward.
Okay.
This will remove the exhaust from engine 31. The way their bays are set up, it does not exhaust directly to the outside.
Oh, okay.
So they need to, they could explain it better than I, but it's a machine that will actually remove the exhaust.
We have a picture there,
Yeah, the
a big
picture, yeah, yeah.
canister on there. I didn't understand why they only needed one, but now I do.
It's the one specific vehicle,
Yeah.
yeah.
But this is year one of what looks to be a two-year project.
Yeah.
No, they got funding in 18-19 for
18-19?
one
Okay.
other vehicle.
Oh.
And then this is the second one.
Okay.
And then as we talked about the rest of the expenditure they need for the turnout gear, washer and dryer.
This is, excuse me,
Sure.
it's a lot of, okay, excuse me. Total project cost 22.5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kate just
This year-
mentioned to us, it's the pumps and the power. They don't have the infrastructure to support
To
the
support
dryer.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about a different building when we said that, but, okay.
No, this is the, yeah.
All right.
We went back. Jamie was asking
Yeah,
why the
sorry.
difference in cost
Okay.
between Darien and Noroton.
Okay.
The next item, the natural gas conversion project. They asked for 60. I deferred some of it because we can't get into the road this year. We have to wait another year, so, with all the various competing projects, I felt, well, we can push some of the funding off on this one. I do have some funding in there to start it, but
Is there anything that they can actually do to start it, or are we better off deferring the entire cost and bonding it next year?
if the Board of Finance were to consider bonding it, I think that would be awesome.
I have it on my list, because there's two departments that are connecting to natural gas, and I think there's a number of things that I'm going to recommend that we recommend for bonding.
That would be great if they would consider that, because, there will be additional costs in terms of, going to have to convert their, what do you call it, the furnace,
Yep.
and
Sure, the
put all
boilers, the
piping in.
generator,
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so,
But I was shocked at the overall cost, it's like it's $250,000 almost. But,
it's not cheap. But it will
And
save us in the
staged out
long
over.
run. Yeah,
Yeah.
it will save us in the long run to have it there.
It will, but
very long run.
I'm not sure
But it's-
that's allocating $60,000. I would hate to be here again next year with that $60,000 unspent.
Well, I think, I'm not sure what the cost of the boiler will be, but I don't think there's much they can do at this point until they can open the road.
Right.
All they'd be doing is, maybe if that was enough to buy a boiler and put it somewhere. So if I would say either, if that's what you're thinking, we'd be better off just cutting it and wait until next year.
I don't know the timing of when they can be in the road.
I didn't
Next
bring my
year.
notes, but they can't be, I thought it was not until next fiscal year, that the timing of when they can open the road was going to fall into the next fiscal year.
It's too recently paved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so in theory, if we did, I'm going to say defer it, I won't say cut, because it's a very important project. They would still have time to
Yes.
procure their equipment,
Mhm.
arrange for the installation while they're doing the trenching.
I believe so, yes.
All right,
Yeah, I think,
All
I see
right.
nodding heads around the table.
okay. Well,
In case, the reason that the project is 225, but on the breakout sheet on page 38, it only shows 165, is because we already had 60 allocated to our magic category of R, whatever it is, R.
In the current year,
Yeah, okay. So that's just basically building up a
building up an account, yeah.
account. Okay.
okay,
Jamie,
yes.
I was told I had to speak up. For consistency between the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen, when we've done conversion to gas at the Board of Ed, it is a single year full cost.
Okay,
So, for consistency, I agree with perhaps deferring it when it is capable, having the full cost of boilers, everything in one swell swoop of this is the cost of the project, and go from that way. But also, just out of curiosity, if we're buying a washer and a dryer, do the dryers come as gas and as opposed to electric? electric, or does it really matter?
Good question.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean, it
know.
may be insignificant, so.
Well, no, but it's a
No,
good
that's
question.
not significant.
Oh, those turnout gears, that's heavy stuff. Huh?
I'll have to ask that.
Yep, that's a good one. I can't answer that one.
It's a lot bigger dryer.
If it
than we
is,
have
I
in
mean,
my basement.
we'd have to ask, not only is it gas, you know, can it run off of propane until we're converted to natural gas,
That's a good
right?
point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
That's what
Yeah,
we did
I'll
at the
check into
garage.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that conversion's not that difficult.
good, okay.
There's
Okay.
always just that clothesline. Oh, I'm sorry. Martha Banks got to me.
I just like it well spent.
So the Heights, let me see some of the project detail.
I don't think they had a write-up on small capital.
Okay, the Heights gets right up on small capital, okay, that's good. So they are also, the first thing they wanted was to replace the bay doors. And with insulated doors, help reduce the heat loss on the apparatus floor. Current doors are 30 years old, and I think that's a good project because it will help, it will save the heating costs so in the long term.
Was this deferred from an earlier year? I wonder?
Not that I recall. Noroton
think
had
you're thinking
asked
of
for
Noroton.
doors in the past.
Yeah.
But not the Heights.
Yeah.
And what did we do with Noroton when they asked?
We wanted to wait until
we
they
wanted
did
until
their
they did the
floor,
floor
and we
first.
wanted to wait for the floor until they did the gas.
And neither one of those came up this year.
Right.
Okay, maybe
Right.
they're waiting, so.
Got it. You know, and sometimes things change depending on who's the chief or who's the president, who, you know, what their priorities are.
Sure, but also another reason to defer the gas connection, because if Board of Finance would bond it, maybe the floor goes in at the same time.
Good,
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. The Heights also has asked for some equipment, strut drivers. Because they do a lot of work on 95, the Heights does have a lot of heavy rescue equipment, and this is a tool that enables them to lift a vehicle and stabilize it.
Great. We skipped over the gas installation one for Noroton.
Oh, I'm sorry, we skipped over the, yes, I'm
Page
sorry.
45.
Because we're talking about the doors, and I was thinking about the gas, too. Yes, so they are continuing along with budget requests for gas conversion.
This is additional monies.
This
We
is
already
additional money,
allocated
yeah.
monies. And this installation can happen this fiscal year.
Yes, because the lines are, yeah.
Correct.
Now, they had nothing in the outer years. Is there any reason?
This is all they needed left to do the project at this point.
No, but I said they had nothing in
Yeah.
their forecast for future year spending.
You're right, and,
Other than natural gas.
but I believe this is the end. They already have a budget of 60.
Ah.
So this is the end for them.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure why
there's
it's
a-
not showing up in the
Yeah.
column
And it's a
here,
cost
but-
overrun there
they
in
got
the
it in
first
fiscal
paragraph.
18.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have a question, Martha?
I just, the Noroton Heights building is probably smaller than the Darien building, but I wonder why they can do it for 80,000 and the other is 250. It just seems a big difference.
It's actually, well, it's not about the size of the building.
Okay?
It's about the part of it is the length that they have to go to connect.
Right.
To the road, but also Noroton has to replace the boiler. The Heights doesn't have to do that at this point.
Right.
They don't. I mean, they had 80.
They're all set with they're all set with the
They
other
did it.
equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kate, this strut driver, what do they do right now?
That's a good question.
Do we have mutual aid on that kind of thing if we need it?
They do have other tools. I know they have airbags.
I mean,
That's,
I guess, what do they do now and how often do they need to do?
how often do they use it? Okay.
Yeah. And is this something that Norwalk or Stamford helps us out with? And if so, how often? I'm not saying whether I think that would be good information to know before I decide what to do.
Yep. I think they wouldn't, the Heights would not get Norwalk.
Okay.
They would get Stamford,
Okay.
and they might get New Canaan too.
And I wonder if New Canaan has one.
Yeah.
I figured if it's on I was thinking 95, that's why I was thinking.
Yeah,
Norwalk,
yeah.
But, yeah, too far.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, there's a small board point that the sum on page 38, which is Noroton Heights going forward, ought to be brought onto page 1, because there's nothing in the out years after this, even in the budget year for Noroton Heights, just curious.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question on how we determine the amount we fund in the apparatus replacement reserve. It doesn't look like it's smoothed in any way.
Well, they put this together, and I think there's a failure in it. Because if you look out in fiscal 30, we don't have enough money.
Uh-huh.
Right.
The ideal would be to be increasing the amounts that we fund every year so that we, I would say after our high point in fiscal 30, that, you were kind of down to zero, and then a zero balance and building back up again to be able to hit the numbers you need in fiscal 34. But if you keep looking out, they've got too much.
Right, that's it.
After that point.
Looking at the schedule, I appreciate that they're planning for their vehicles, but I don't understand the funding
Yeah.
glide path here. So is that something that we can take a look at with them?
Yeah, I can ask Bobby to send it to me and take a look at redoing it.
Yep.
It's probably a spreadsheet, it's probably a
Yeah.
formula, you can adjust it.
Yeah, you would take the equipment that you think you're going to have to replace and put it in the year that you're going to have to replace it, estimate what the cost of that might be at that point in time, and then work backwards.
Correct.
To fund it.
Yep. Because I don't have any reason to not make an arbitrary cut to the
Oh, no.
530 that we're putting in this year.
Right.
I don't have a justification for why that has to be the number.
While we're on the fire commission, they've asked for a traffic preemption system to upgrade it. It's a multi-year project. The current system is old, can't be updated. This is the system that changes the traffic lights to allow for the trucks to have a clear route through intersections. So this would be the first year of funding. Maybe something that the Board of Finance wants to consider bonding as well. The one downside to it, if you look at what they say the estimated useful life is, that may be
Yeah.
a negative in terms of bonding, but
Does this go on all traffic signals? How many traffic signals does it go on?
I'll have to ask that. I would assume not all of them, probably just the major
Well,
ones.
they said they want to do them for all. If I
Yeah.
just got to find it, it's here someplace.
It does say all traffic lights in town. I'll ask them how many that actually means.
Yeah.
Right.
Do the police use the same system, or do they have a different system?
I don't believe they use one,
They just use sirens?
yeah. So do the fire trucks, but this is actually a thing that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
The most notable location is for Post 53 as they come up onto Noroton Avenue.
Sure.
But I also am wondering if, I guess I'd like detail on the cost per signal location. And we're going to be replacing some signals, the one at West and Noroton, and the one hopefully in the next couple of years at Ledge and Noroton.
Yep.
My understanding, and I'll confirm it, but my understanding was that it could be
It's
portable. It's portable, yeah.
okay, all right.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Again, Is the total, will the implementation happen in a single year that we're going to be changing the lights in a single year? Or is it done over a 3-year period that we're doing it? Because, again, if we're changing it at a single year, my own preference would be in the year that we intend to do it is what the cost is instead of building up to something. Again, that's consistent with how the Board of Ed does some of their major initiatives. And then the other advantage is that it is at the discretion of the Board of Finance more bondable because it's a single year of what's going on.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a good useful life for bonding, it's only 10 years. So,
The theory of spreading it out is the same as actually the theory behind the vehicle replacement plan, so we don't have spikes in the capital that by asking for it now and funding it over 3 years will keep the impact to the taxpayers minimal.
Well, but if we're bonding it, we have the same.
If we're bonding, that's one thing.
And quite honestly, at bonding, you can have a 10-year life. On a single bond, you can have multiple lives on that bond. We did that when we did the bonding of the field, which had a shorter life than the bonding of the group.
but you probably can't bond it if you're just reserving for it. Is that your point?
Well,
Right.
I'm
Like
not sure about that, but it's just,
I think it's a decision for the Board of Finance.
Okay.
It's.
I guess it's a question from my perspective. The project is 300 grand. We're putting $100,000 into a reserve right now for it.
If
Can
we're-
you bonds a reserve?
No,
I
you
didn't
can't,
think so.
you wouldn't bond the reserve. You could, the thing would be for the Board of Finance to say, to either cut it,
Okay.
or, like they did last year, actually, the cafeteria was in the budget, and then they decided to bond for it.
Yep.
So that freed up money in the reserve fund that they were able to reallocate to other projects.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that's pertinent here is will they actually do the work over 3 years, or do they want to
Yeah.
do it all at once?
Yeah, I will ask them that. My assumption is that it would be all at once, that when they got the full amount they needed, then they would do the work.
It kind of seems that way, but it's not
Okay.
too clear.
Fire marshal's replacement vehicle?
Yep.
Does that have to be new? I mean, I don't like to nickel and dime on cars, but do we have access to any hand-me-down police vehicles?
I believe the hand-me-down police vehicles have been all earmarked for other departments.
Okay, okay.
We have a couple in, building is one that I believe is getting one, and
I mean, you have to say, the current vehicle's 14 years old, that's pretty great. Got a
Yeah.
lot of use out of that.
But I respect your question. I had the same one,
Yeah.
because this is not an emergency response vehicle.
Right.
well, yes, it is.
It can
They
be.
do respond to fires. They're not like
They're
they're
not a
having a
first
high rate of speed.
responder.
But the other thing is, I would say, I'm not sure that the police Explorers are actually heavy-duty enough for all the equipment that the fire marshal has to carry
Okay.
for when they respond to the fires.
Okay.
But also, aren't they talking more that this would be a part-time staff to use for inspection investigations versus fighting the actual fires?
That's where.
So-
It's not fighting-
I felt
well,
the same way.
I mean, I don't,
I'm sorry,
so-
you're right, I didn't,
This just didn't
Well-
seem like it needed to be this level of a car.
They have tools and reference materials, but,
Right.
I mean, could be...
you're right, it is, so
It's
this is
not-
again.
I don't think
where
it-
the-
I don't
I'm
think it's
sorry,
a
I thought
fire
it was-
investigation.
I thought it was
vehicle.
Mark or Bobby's.
No, I
Check
think
into
it's one of
that.
the-
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe it could be a pickup truck or something.
Right, that's what I was thinking too. That didn't have to be 64,000.
Yeah, and that is one where where a hand-me-down from the police might work.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Oh, and then you need this replacement inspection fire reporting software.
Yeah, they need to replace their inspection reporting software. The software that they've been using doesn't meet their needs.
Well, I heard them say that as we move to these new redevelopments with a large number of apartments above the storefronts, that all those apartments need to be inspected annually. That just gives you an extra justification, I think, for this, because they're concerned about that workload.
Yeah, they will have to inspect all of those. They're also responsible for the blight inspections, all the fire inspections, and it's just the software that they have been using. It's not responsive, it's not flexible.
Looks like it's moving to an off-site server too,
Yes.
instead of a,
And if you see, he actually, under the ROI, that if the product works for them for 8 years, the cost would be about $2,000 per year for the 8 years, as opposed to, so,
We don't always have a good response on the ROI question. That's a good response.
especially on this stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and for one, some people just don't understand what ROI is. But there's a lot of things that we do that it's hard to put an ROI on it.
Oh, I
you know?
understand that.
It's like upgrading the building permit software so that we can do things online. That's hard to quantify other than the customer satisfaction,
Yep.
you know.
Contractor convenience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and, you know, there's value in that.
yep.
Okay.
Did we ever talk about the emergency management, the radios? I don't recall.
No.
That's the one.
Briefly, we did.
Well,
You know, that's the one about the band
Yeah.
changing and.
We're afraid to talk about it.
You didn't move that forward.
I did not move that
Yeah.
forward. Until we know what's happening, I
Yep.
don't see any point
I agree.
in moving it forward.
Okay. We wanted to take a moment, excuse me, to talk about the funds.
We're going to talk about the CNRE later.
Oh, it's before capital.
That is capital, and I think we've talked about all of them as we've gone through the different departments. Correct.
I don't recall
Yeah.
talking about Highland Farm improvements.
Pardon?
I don't
Or the
recall
Board of
talking about the
Selectmen.
Highland Farm improvements.
We did not.
Okay.
That's mine.
Right. That's a
All right, let's go there.
$600,000 project that is spread over now 2 years rather than 1 year.
Yeah, that's
Because I
fine.
figured if I was going to cut other people's capitals, I, you know, should maybe cut the one that I was proposing. The cost of the parking lots as designed is estimated at $600,000.
Really?
What about?
That also includes the walking path,
Right.
but it's all the drainage that needs to go in. It includes the comfort station,
Okay.
okay?
The grasses.
Pardon?
We talked about building a buffer of
Landscaping,
high grasses
Yes,
next to
yeah.
the fence. Okay.
yes.
It's all things that Greg went
Yes.
over. Okay.
Yes. I proposed deferring it to get one in, and because I felt we needed, I really would love to be planning to build them all, both next year, but looking at the size of the budget, it was something that could be split into two. I do think this is something that the Board of Finance should consider bonding.
Yeah.
I think that the Planning and Zoning Commission has a stipulation in their special permit on how long we have to
Yes.
make these improvements.
Yes.
So I don't know if splitting it in half is going to meet their approved schedule. We would have to go back for a change.
I thought we were asking for some leeway in that.
I don't
already.
believe they're going to grant that. They want us to come back if we don't get the funding in this
Okay.
budget.
Okay. I really do think it's something that should be bonded, but
Yeah.
It wasn't up to me to
Sure.
do the bonding, so
I
I was
mean-
trying to make the numbers fit for the budget.
If we get the 2 parking lots done at the same time, there should be some economy to that.
There should be some economies, yes.
In addition, the land becomes more usable
Yeah.
for the public.
And if we also, if you also approve the money for the short lane project, there's also the possibility of getting some economies of scale by doing everything at the same time.
Because you really want to put in, at least want to put in 1 parking, comfort station, and the walking path.
I don't know if I see the value in breaking this project up into pieces.
That's my point.
The value is strictly in finding money in the budget.
Correct.
That's
Okay,
the
so
only motivation.
That part's coming.
If I might ask, from looking at both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed side, usually you look for 1 or 2 large projects that the Board of Finance might look at that they might lump together. So moving this 600,000 really is helpful because there's not a lot at the Board of Ed side this year that's a $5 amount. So-
I also have concerns that as we move into building a new school, that something like Highland Farm or Short Lane will,
Be neglected.
it just will
Go
become a
lower.
lower priority.
I fully agree.
Okay,
Were we going to look at the special funds?
yep. Are we all set on capital?
Or now.
I found the page, it's after page 261, 262.
Didn't we add it in?
I put it in the back.
It all depended on where you
Yeah.
all.
Oh, that's
where you
where I
set
saw it, never mind.
I put it in the same spot, Mark.
Other funds. Yeah, after 262, I put it, yeah.
Yep.
Which is good. Okay.
General fund revenue?
So Kate, can you go over one more time an explanation of this? Just so, these were all,
So these are non-budgeted funds.
yeah.
And, let's see, Jen prepared a nice schedule for you showing the source of the funds.
Okay.
Some of them are restricted in their use by the source, such as, like the grants for special ed. Those are state and federal grants, can't use it for anything else. You might get gifts that restrict, like, go down to the Harold Dean Trust Fund. We were given money, God knows when, to purchase hockey trophies. There's one there was one that no longer exists, that ran out of money, that was for scholarships for baseball players. And we gave scholarships until there was no more money left. So those are things that they're restricted by the gifts, but it might be better for Jen to walk you through what this is all about.
So, F&B has done a review of these, and some of them will be closed out, they're inactive, or we'll find ways to use up the funds and be done with it. But kind of the recurring ones are up towards the top, the Special Education Grants Fund, the Special Education Reserve Funds, the False Alarm Fund. Social Services Gift Fund is an ongoing fund where they receive donations, contributions, and then they spend them. Park Pals Play Area Trust is specifically for Cherry Lawn. So Park and Rec will be looking for projects to do there to use up those funds. The next two, the Weed Beach gift funds, I don't quite know why we have two, but that $6,000 is actually shown as a revenue into the capital non-recurring fund in the annual budget to partially offset the sunshade that's requested. So if you were to not fund that, we would take the money back out and find a different use for it at Weed Beach right out of this fund, but in this case, it could support that project.
Does the capital expense that we've seen in the budget reflect this
That's a
potential
gross-
transfer?
No.
The expense is the $15,000 for the cost of the project. This
Yeah.
comes in on the revenue side, which reduces what has to come over from the general fund.
Okay.
We need to appropriate the full cost of the project, though. Then you get into police private duty. That's their special duty fund, which is an ongoing. It's paid by the contractors who hire the police false alarms fund. Senior Center gift fund is the same as the social services gift fund.
Back to the police private duty fund, so who's in charge of making disbursements from that fund?
It's strictly a payroll. That's the only thing that gets paid out of it.
Okay, it's quite a healthy accumulation.
Yes, we do send money over to the general fund every year for overhead and administrative expenses. But that's an ongoing,
Okay, you got your eye on it.
Yeah.
I'm happy, okay.
Last year, they ran about $1 million of payroll through there.
Really? Oh, okay, that's not so much money then.
They've been very busy on special jobs.
Wait, can I ask one more question? So would that also include when they're out helping the gas company?
that is what, that's exactly what it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's why.
It's when they're hired by an outside
Yeah,
entity.
Any outside, okay.
But that also includes the Board of Ed or any special events. Anyone who uses one of our police pays
Yeah.
into this fund. This is the fund that generates it, and it's extremely well managed.
Okay.
The land purchase option fund, we used that last when we bought the land at Hecker Woods for some closing costs. So it's there, it's available for those types of items on land purchases. Affordable Housing Trust Fund is specifically for providing affordable housing. We do maintain a state and federal grants fund. We have, whenever we get maybe a public health grant or a single, maybe a park and rec grant, public works grant, we put them into a grants fund so that it can be multi-year and we can segregate it from the general fund.
Yes, so you can keep track of it and assure people that, yes.
Exactly. And then we get into the inactive funds. A lot of these were for a specific purpose. The Sarah Wilson Trust Fund is for cemetery maintenance, so the Monuments and Ceremonies Cemetery Subcommittee, they requested money for cemetery maintenance again in the 1920 budget, but our approach is that they should access this Sarah Wilson Trust money, draw that down first, and then in the future, they could request more money out of the annual budget. Working with F&B, we're trying to come to some resolution on the Harold Dean Trust Fund for the hockey trophy. A lot of these even predate when we moved to Munis in 1999-2000, so we don't have a lot of history on them.
Could buy a really big trophy.
Can we give it to the Board of Ed?
I found out that, it turns out that Harold Dean is Judge Harold Dean.
Yeah.
And I've been able to get his number through an attorney with him, and we're going to be calling and seeing if he's willing to have a hockey trophy at the Board of Ed. I have to clear that with the Board of Ed, and then the rest going to the youth hockey group.
Great, thanks.
On the memorial funds, what we would look to do is have Monuments and Ceremonies utilize these funds to do some work on memorials. And then the next, animal control, waste disposal, waste management, those were originally their own funds for operating purposes of animal control, waste disposal, waste management. They're no longer used, they've been inactive for years, and we are going to be looking to go through the proper process to close those out and just have those amounts become unassigned fund balance.
In that case, it will be the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM that have to approve the resolution, which Wayne is working on. Kate was kind enough to make some minor adjustments to it.
And the Storm Recovery Fund was some funding that was moved from the general fund to cover Storm Sandy expenses. We received sufficient FEMA and insurance reimbursements to cover those expenses. We didn't have to use all of the money that was transferred from the general fund. So again, through proper resolution and process, we're going to seek to close that out. And then finally, the stadium field, the recommendation on that, since we did just do a turf field project in the last year, is to transfer that over to the reserve for capital non-recurring, just to go towards that project that we just funded. So we are keeping an eye on these. A lot of these have been there for a long time. So next year you'll see that this list is smaller. But these are other monies that the town manages.
Great, I appreciate seeing this.
That's very, very helpful.
I appreciate also cleaning it up. Okay. I think that really finishes out our budget review. So if we could review what you put together, Kate, Jen, and Dan.
What Jen put together is a list of the changes that we've talked about so far. The one that is new, I believe the only one that's new, is the very first one. We overlooked rent for town hall in the revenue
Okay.
budget for public works. So that's positive, adding in
Okay.
rent.
And did we make some changes already tonight? We identified a few things that,
The only one that I noted was the Noroton natural gas conversion.
okay.
And do you want to officially put on our list the fully requesting the 600,000 from Highland Farm?
Yeah, I have a couple other things to discuss. I'm sure other people do too. But yes, let's handle that Noroton Fire Department natural gas connection. Can we agree that we'll defer that cost until next year when we can likely do the project? So we can make that $60,000 cut, right?
I think
Is that
they
how much
put
it is?
forth 30,000 for.
Was it 30?
Yeah, I had to put forward 30,000.
Okay. Okay. Anybody want to kick off this discussion on any revisions, either cuts or additions to this budget? I think what I'd like to say, just to sort of start this discussion, is, as you can tell, this budget is a service-neutral budget. And I think we endeavor to provide a service-neutral budget until the pressures of the state become so great that we can no longer provide a service-neutral budget. We're always looking for ways. I think you'll find identified in this budget efforts to continue to find efficiencies. I would like to note that I'd like to really address certain departmental efficiencies in future years that might not be reflected here. I think there are many things that we can do, for example, in the town clerk's office, to digitize services, have online services. WestCog is going to be looking into that on behalf of our member municipalities. This budget, as you remember in the beginning, supported the reinstatement of a position in Parks and Recreation. I'm going to recommend that we support that, given the land acquisitions and the additional work that we have in town. Associated with that is continuing to support the position that was moved to the Public Works Department. We've had some personnel shifts in the facilities area in the Public Works Department, and I think the additional help has allowed us to really stay current with the needs of our facilities. So I'm recommending to the board that we support both of those positions, the continuation in the Public Works and the addition of the Parks and Rec.
Jamie,
Yes.
Susan had raised earlier, and Jack also raised, did we look at outsourcing for that position in Parks and Rec? And I asked Pam, and she and Jim Flynn, the superintendent of parks, had considered could they outsource, but for a number of reasons did not put that forward. A lot of it has to do with the flexibility that they need for the work that we do with the crew, based on the schedules, their programming, event needs. They feel that the outsourcing would not meet the high standards that we have for our parks when we're not dealing with our employees. We already do have the equipment that we need, and we have outsourced some things in the past and have had to bring them back in-house because it didn't meet the standards that we set for the quality of work. another issue would be, although our contract with the Parks and Rec, with the union, the Public Works Union that Parks and Rec is part of, it does not address whether or not we can privatize any of their work, but that would be a subject of mandatory bargaining.
Got it.
So it could be a very tricky issue for us if we wanted to do that. We would likely see charges from the union.
Okay, good. Thank you. Are you satisfied with
Yeah.
that analysis?
It was worth looking into, and came back with an answer, so yeah.
Okay. In addition to going forward, looking at ways to continue to find efficiencies through technology, I think we should, before the next budget cycle, look in a meaningful way at the potential shared services with a peer town or two on certain services within town government. And what comes to mind for me, we talked about some through the budget process. We talked about the dispatch, which we'll have a much larger conversation about civilian dispatch coming up. The dog warden. Looking at maybe combining the assessor and collector department within town hall to see if there's any administrative savings to doing that. And then again, trying to make efforts to modernize the town clerk's department. So I'm not sure if we want to have the discussion first about the civilian dispatch. Might as well talk about that before we move forward with other issues. That's the big one. We deferred it. I think this board over the years has been very reluctant to support the civilian dispatch model. We've gone slow. We started with one, had some challenges with the one, now we have 3, and we're asking to hire 3 more, which would allow us to be fully civilianized for our day shift and our evening shift, which now begins to make some sense, because as we were having this discussion, and I don't know how deeply you want to go into the Q&A. I think I sent everybody some Q&A that was going on between Mr. Davis and Kate and myself. This will allow us, now that we would have civilians on those 2 shifts, the way their schedule works, to be able to move people into different positions. SRO. I feel strongly that if we do support this request, that it comes with the understanding that we will place an SRO in Middlesex Middle School, and we will dedicate a narcotics officer. I don't know how to do that, since we're not really in control of the work schedules at the police department, but that's how do we enforce that? Because
right. I would not have proposed it were it not for that. That's
Correct.
The result that we could get out of it.
And I thought Jack raised, a good point just with the timing of the schedule. How did that, come to pass? That we'd be able to have 2 full-time staff members, and if they're out sick, is there more overtime because you can't pull? I don't know. It just didn't add up.
Yeah,
to
they're
me.
different. They're separate issues, but it has to. You have to think about the day shift being covered and the evening shift being covered. If it was only one or the other, it doesn't work. And the chief has offered to sit down with Mr. Davis and some other people to explain how the schedule, the rotation works, and show how it would actually work. It also, at the same time, does get us all to where we want to be in terms of our coverage in the dispatch. We can't forget that that's part of it, is that we should have 2 people in dispatch at all times. We'd still be short on the midnight shift, but that is the least active shift. And one of the things that I kept going back to in trying to decide where to go with this budget was, if we're looking to provide a certain level of police service, the whole picture, two people in dispatch at one time, an SRO, a narcotics officer, what's the best way to get there for the taxpayers? And while it's a big nut to take in this year, if we wanted to do it, we could not do it with our existing sworn personnel. We'd have to be adding sworn officers to do it with police officers, which is a more expensive. So you could stay with, you could sit here and say, we're comfortable with the level of police services that we provide now. And that's where we want to end. But if you want to go to a higher level of police service.
I think last year we had also talked about, and, you know, I ran into one of the Board of Ed members, and we discussed this, and, you know, should this initiative for the SRO be moved forward through the Board of Ed? Should it be a recommendation of theirs? You know, they're putting in all these security gateways at the elementary schools right now. I mean, is this something that is this really something that the Board of Selectmen can initiate? Should we be initiating it? And I actually don't feel like we are by hiring dispatchers. I just feel like there's no guarantee for an SRO, and I'm not sure if the Board of Ed is really, you know, pushing for one.
The Board of Ed is 100% on board with the middle school SRO. They had a board discussion some time ago about it, and discussions have been
So maybe it was
ongoing.
just this particular board
Yes.
member. But-
They're very much in favor. Now, you know, that leads to the obvious question that some people might be asking, well, why isn't it then funded by the Board of Education?
Right.
But because they are law enforcement personnel, they're a sworn officer, they carry a gun, they are given their orders by, you know, the chief of police. It really should be under the control of the police department, and therefore, you know, control follows money, or money follows control. So it's important that it stays under the umbrella of the police department.
I think I'd like to see what that position looked like more.
So are you familiar with the position at
But
DHS?
But I don't feel like the police department is really, I'm not sure that's exactly what's going to happen with those officers. I mean, are we just 100% that we're going to go straight into hiring in the SRO and the narcotics? I mean, is that?
It wouldn't be hiring, it would be assigning
Yeah.
within our existing personnel.
And that's a guarantee.
That,
If
according
we
to
do this, they
according
see
to
that.
Chief Osborne and Superintendent and the Chairman of the Board of Ed are counting on our commitment to filling the position of the middle school SRO.
Remember, the chief had put forward two proposals as part of his budget. One was to add an additional officer to be the SRO, to actually go out and hire to hire a new patrol officer that would free up another officer to become the SRO. We wouldn't actually hire, the new person we hired would not be the SRO, but hire a 52nd officer so that one of our existing officers could become the SRO.
And that'll be a full-time person.
Well, that's, he gave us two methods of
options.
accomplishing the SRO at the middle school.
So clearly, it was his objective.
Okay.
Okay.
The other,
But they want that to be a full-time position.
It is a full-time position during the school year.
Okay.
During the summer months, they assign them to other duties.
And the same with the narcotics then? That's
The narcotics would be a full-time assignment
Right.
year-round.
But I will say that the SROs, although they are in the school during school hours and then after school for special events, they are available as a patrol officer when the town has the need. So if there's an emergency somewhere in town, they can be dispatched to wherever that emergency is. And that is also the case when any other time, school vacations or during the summer, they are functioning as a regular patrol officer.
I might add, I've had conversations with Tara about this, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Board of Ed not only supports this, but may have voted in favor of this, and so they were looking for an SRO the last time I spoke for the Middlesex school. It's been very successful at the high school, and I think it's just a natural progression.
We're holding it up with our decisions here at this board level.
Is
so.
there any way to get some information about the SRO at the high school and like where it's been successful? Like what sort of measurements of success there are?
They've already discussed it at the Board of Ed. I'll see if I can find what Vimeo's meetings they've had that you might be able to watch too.
I think it's because
How
Ray,
many incidences so far have happened at the middle school that would warrant an SRO there?
well, an SRO, my understanding of an SRO isn't so much to be there to respond to incidents. It is to be in the schools, to build relationships with the students and the faculty, and to really be a support mechanism for the kids. It's all about community policing and relationship building and helping to avoid issues, really, I think is how you look at the SRO model. And I know that Ray came before the Board of Education and made a full presentation on the middle school SRO, where he would likely have answered questions. So I think that's a great idea, if you could help
Yeah,
find that.
I will. The other thing I'll add is, one of the things that are happening in the school, and Tara mentioned it at the State of the Union, is that schools are becoming a major provider of mental health.
Correct.
And a lot of our curriculum, and I know Jamie, you're a big supporter of this, is the social emotional aspect of education and what goes on in the schools. The SRO becomes part of that area, not in that they're policing what's going on in the schools, but rather they become another avenue where certain kids really relate to the officer that we have at the high school.
Correct.
And it's in the social emotional that they do more service than they do on, incidents of what's going on.
Yeah, I think.
Well, and, sorry, Kate, in point of fact, if there is a law enforcement need in the school building, it isn't actually the SRO that does the policing part. They call in the youth officers so that the relationship between the SRO and the students can be preserved.
Right.
I really struggle with the concept of having a police officer in the school. I have a daughter who's going to start at the middle school in the fall, and I'm curious to learn a little bit more about it.
I'll see what other information I can get. I'll speak to Tara tonight or tomorrow.
And I'll ask
get
Ray
that
what
for
he
you.
can provide.
Yeah, and it would also be good, it's probably in that presentation, some kind of a statement from the middle school principal.
I'm
Okay.
sure it's there.
Yeah.
But I know that there's
Would
more
this
support
then
there.
relieve, some security that is
No.
at the school as well,
No.
that we're already paying for?
No.
No.
It's not a security, he's not there to patrol. And it's, you asked
Is it
about.
an office?
They would have probably an office, a location where they can be for the children, but they also do go into the classrooms.
They eat
and
lunch with the
provide,
kids.
do teaching
Yeah,
programs.
that's
But it's,
important.
when you talk about measurements of success, this is one that it is hard to give you quantifiable things other than the relationships that are developed. The real success is in the things that do not happen.
I just have a hard time feeling that it's necessary as a full-time position.
So, I respect your concerns about that. What I will say is that the SRO model has been shown to be a highly successful model within our schools. We were actually a little bit late to the game in terms of SROs.
I see it at the high school level, just at the middle school level.
Yeah.
I think you might be, and I'm going back a number of years because my kids are all much older, but not too frightened anymore that your daughter's going into the middle school, but I think you might be somewhat surprised of what the kids in the middle school now have available to them with social media and other things like that. It is not the same as when I went to middle school.
Even
As
10
I
years
said, I
ago.
have a rising middle schooler, so I'm
Yeah, so
aware of that
I'm
age
just
group.
saying that it has been extremely successful. And as Kate mentioned, they do teach courses and other things like that. And they become a resource for the kids when they're asking questions. And
I think-
just don't see it as a full-time
Okay.
position.
So what I will say, and it's probably too long of a conversation, and there are likely other professionals that are better at articulating this than I am, but it has been determined that middle school, that's, for us, that's 6th grade to 8th grade, is the time when there are issues that are burgeoning, that with the right personnel that has the right kind of human service background and training, which SROs do, can really help support kids, as Jack said, in their social and emotional wellness to sort of fend off issues that will then progress to larger issues.
I think any armed officer in a building, it sort of negates the social emotional learning if you feel like you have to have that conversation with a gun in your holster. So that's, you know.
Yes,
that's
would you,
fine.
hold on, sure.
Well, I'm a student at DHS, and I'm not sure if I could provide some insight, but
Can you tell us your name, please?
I'm Shashank Sangaru.
Thank you.
I'm a senior at the Darien High School. And for us, the SRO, sometimes we forget that he's even a police officer. He's just like a friend or a mentor to most students I see.
Mhm.
And some students I know that have had run-ins with the law talk to him as if like they're a friend. They get advice, and he explains and sort of personalizes the consequences of their actions better than anyone else, because he is a police officer. He will tell you that if you do this, this will happen to you. This is the real consequence. And for example, in my law and government class, the teacher brought him in to explain more about and give a special sort of perspective that we don't really get from a teacher. But I kind of like having a school resource officer at school.
And you're at the high school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for the high school.
So could we just bring us back for 1 second to, not necessarily justifying should we have it or not, although I totally respect what you're saying, Pam, but I had wrestled with this for a long time. Is it better to, totally civilianize the dispatch or not? And I've come around with the fact of, we don't know if in 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, this could be a regionalized function. So I have come to the conclusion that it's really better, in my mind, to hire the civilian dispatchers versus an additional police officer because, well, one of the reasons is, if it does get regionalized, I understand that if the position itself goes away, then we let people go because so if we don't hire these two and we hire an additional police officer, and then it does get regionalized, we're going to have an additional police officer that I'm sure we can figure out what to do with, but you're not going to let that police officer go because as easily as letting the dispatchers go. One reason. That's one of my rationales.
But I guess I would argue that if we didn't civilianize dispatch and at some point we regionalized, you then would have to have the conversation, what do we do with these officers who've been in dispatch? Do we let them go?
Right.
I think it's
Right, that's, well, I guess we're...
I guess what you're saying is it's an easy decision if it's the dispatchers.
Right. And the other thing that I would like to add with some kind of assurance from the chief that we would have an SRO and have a narcotics is, I really think we need to go revisit having the fire, we talked about this a little, having fire dispatch come back to the police department.
Yeah.
I don't know what the cost savings would be, but it could...
50 grand.
50, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, so my take on that is, we don't have to have a conversation. If that's part of the decision, that's part of the, it was this board or your predecessor board who made the decision to fund the fire dispatch going to CMed. If you choose to say that we want the fire dispatch to come back to our local, to our communications center, that is your decision, and you can make that part of the budget.
And the dispatchers don't really have any, so I guess I was...
We may have to give them some additional training and on the fire dispatch, just to, make them familiar with the districts, with the protocols. But there's absolutely no reason why they wouldn't be capable of doing both.
So between all of that, and then also Kip brought up a good point about, the taxpayers do spend a lot of money training these police officers.
Mhm.
And are we getting the best use of our we've spent all
money,
this money
yeah.
to train them, and then they're in dispatch, which is a critical job, but it's not what they're trained to do.
Correct.
So that's kind of how I've come across the fact that I do believe that we should civilianize the dispatch. But we do need the chief to, tell us one more time that those other two positions will come to light soon.
So I guess I want to hear from everybody, your vote on the civilian dispatching, with the caveat that we have some conversations. So I know that we have some loose ends that will be addressed.
Can I
With
also
the chief.
ask one
Yeah.
on the loose end? Having done outsource in my professional career and having trained dispatchers, typically what will happen is those dispatchers will be absorbed
Yeah.
into the regionalization.
Right, that's what I would expect.
And that's what I would suspect. The only question is, where is it and whether or not they want to go there. But fully experienced dispatcher on a regional level will be more than welcome
Sure.
into any.
Well, and also, even if we're
organization.
not forced into the regionalization, it may be something that we certainly encourage to happen.
Right, but I don't want, because
Yeah.
I've heard even yesterday, people saying, oh, well, we'll hire people and then they're going to lose their job if it goes regionalization. We may be hiring them,
Right.
and they may be going to
Yeah.
another job
Right.
should regionalization.
Right. Sure.
Yeah,
go. That's the more
Okay,
probable.
that's a better
I do agree with Jack. I think, if we are forced into regionalizing down the road, that regional center is going to need dispatchers.
Or if we choose to,
Or-
if we're lucky enough that it works with another town or towns, and it's economically the right way to go.
Right.
It's not just a matter of being forced.
Okay. So, Susan's supportive of the civilian dispatchers. Mark?
Yes, I'm supportive of the civilian dispatchers. I think they make a lot of sense. And I know there's a bump in our expenses, to do that. I think we need the full-time narcotics officer. I also had reservations about an SRO, an armed officer in the high school. But we've had a lot of experience with that then. And I've had discussions with a former guidance counselor that says it's very, very positive effect there. And I also had then, personally, the same reservations. Does that work for middle school? Will it work for middle school like it did at the high school? And the more I think about it, the more I think it will. But, we don't have any of that, like, direct experience. Regarding dispatch, speaking to someone in the fire department, they're very happy with the way dispatch works right now
With CMed.
with CMed, in that they are no longer the second or third unit dispatched. And it's important, at least if you're working on I-95, that nobody goes on the highway till a fire truck gets there. Because they use the fire truck with its multiplicity of lights and its bulk, to provide some safety. And that wasn't happening beforehand, so that the police and the ambulance would sit on the ramp waiting, for the fire truck to get there. Now, we're not
Doesn't happen
talking
too often,
about dozens of minutes here, we're just talking about.
Right.
So that's, I just thought I'd get that out there, that's all.
Sure.
So while we're talking about it.
I would expect that if we hire professional telecommunicators, that we'll be able to manage fire dispatch, whether we allow for some lag time to make that transition back. I don't know exactly how that would work, but
Well, and there would be two dispatchers other than that last shift.
Yes.
Whereas I think in the
Correct.
In
past,
the past, there was only one.
there was only one.
Right.
That would, yeah.
I would like,
Rational.
I'd like to make it work that way and have
Yeah.
everybody as happy as
Yeah.
they currently are.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think one thing that would be important if we were bringing the fire dispatch back is to involve the fire departments in the training.
Yes, completely
Yep.
agree with that.
Yeah.
And I would like to see the savings, if we bring the dispatch back, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
$50,000 offset to
Yeah.
personnel costs.
Yeah. I mean, if we're not going to be able to have the same quality of service, then I don't think we should bring it back. But if we can have the same level of service and save $50,000,
Mhm.
it's a home run.
But to be clear, post 53 will continue to do CMed.
Yeah, and one of the reasons with that is we also are responsible for providing pre-arrival instructions. And CMed does that for us.
Correct.
They have the expertise to do that, which we do not in-house.
Okay, all right. Kip, civilian dispatchers.
I'm in favor.
Okay. Pam?
I am not in favor, and I do not see the need for the SRO at the middle school. I'm actually quite uncomfortable, as I said before, with the idea of an armed officer in our middle school. I can see how it's, how it was used at the high school. I can't imagine that we would need I don't see it as a full-time position that's necessary, and I find it really, I'm just extremely uncomfortable with the idea, especially with a rising middle schooler going into it. As far as the narcotics officer position, I was really impressed last night with, it was last night, right? When they were here, so many meetings. Really impressed to hear about the sort of cross municipality intelligence gathering that they do to help with what's going on right now and how successful it is. So I don't see a need for another dedicated person to be a narcotics officer here.
Okay.
So no, I'm not in favor.
Okay, thank you. I am going to support the civilian dispatch for all the reasons that have been stated around the table. And to Kate's initial point that I happen to believe we do, based on information that I have gathered over the years, that we would very much benefit from a narcotics officer. And I strongly support an SRO in our middle school. We will get information to you, just so you can be informed about what the Board of Ed has been talking about, what Chief Osborne has been talking about. So it looks like we're 4-1 on the civilian dispatchers. I'd like to suggest, though, that we do bring the fire dispatch back in-house to get the savings, whenever that makes sense. I don't.
I would say you want a lag time.
Yep, I think so too.
Between bringing in the new dispatchers.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
You got to make sure that it's working right.
Mhm.
I should add, I'll have 2 grandchildren in middle school next year. I'm still in favor.
Okay. And I don't know if you remember, right now, there's an informal school liaison officer program where the 2 officers actually go and walk through all of the middle school and the elementary schools. So I don't know if that would continue with an SRO in the middle school or not.
I think
Okay.
they said last night it would not in the
It would
middle
not,
school.
okay.
I think I asked that question.
At the
At the elementary school, yes,
Yeah.
but not the middle school.
Yep. Okay, so, all right, with that big one out of the way, there's a couple things that I'd like to propose, and folks can chime in if you have other things that you might like to propose. This fire apparatus replacement schedule, I'm first on capital. Fire apparatus replacement schedule,
Yeah.
I don't see the relevance of the $530,000, so I was going to make an arbitrary $30,000 cut to that this year, unless you can tell me that that's not wise.
I think the 1 year will not have an impact,
Okay.
but again, like we did a few years ago, when you look at the schedule going out fiscal 30, we need to rethink
Yep, so let's take a look at that. And I'd like to make that small cut this year, but I'd like to look at that schedule.
Yeah, we need to rethink the schedule, we need to rethink how we finance it, we need to rethink the level of equipment that we have.
Can I just suggest that they should come back and say, here's our methodology. Just walk through the methodology, because that'll tell you everything.
Well, I think the methodology on the budgeting side is just adding some money, about $35,000 a year.
That's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
What you do is you look at what you got
Yeah.
in place, estimate what it will cost at the time you want to replace it, then you work backwards and what money do I need to get there?
Yeah, I'm mostly interested in how are they coming up with the useful lives,
Yeah,
and how are they estimating the expenditures? What kind of increase factor are they using?
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
really not that hard, it's just a question of lay it out for us.
Okay.
Because clearly what they're showing us is something that doesn't compute.
Public Works, Town Hall landscaping, $7,000. Can you just refresh my memory, Kate, on, is that Public Works doing that work? Or is that the
No,
Beautification Commission
and,
doing
you
that
know,
work?
I think it's beautification.
It was beautification. Cut it. That would be absolutely fine by me. We were told that Town Hall is that it's unattractive.
Yes.
And the proposal was for much more than the
Yes.
7,000.
Right.
Well, from what I witnessed today at 4 o'clock outside of Town Hall with the cars zipping around, dropping students off, they really were not looking at anything other than if they could park in the fire lane,
Better just
so.
watch the road, yeah.
I mean, I am very supportive of the Beautification Commission. I think they do an excellent job. They seem to be very offended by the appearance of the outside of Town Hall, which I don't really understand that, but I would throw that on the table. It's a small dollar amount. I'm not going to die on the sword over it, so I'd like to hear from everybody else on that.
We're not on the Blight Committee yet, are we?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, they asked for a lot of money. I left in a little, but my thinking was really there are other priorities in town than,
Yeah.
we can simplify if it's unattractive. We can
Yeah.
simplify out front, and I'd be just fine if you cut the whole thing.
Okay, but how does my board feel?
I'd be fine to leave it where it is. They asked for 35,000, wasn't it? And so we're giving them.
this
They
is
asked for
different.
20,000 for their.
20,000.
They asked for 35 for the things they do around town,
For the
the
baskets.
baskets
Oh, okay.
and the. This is to do landscaping
Just for
specifically
Town
at
Hall
this
was
building.
20.
Just Town Hall.
I was going to suggest
20
they take some of their money from all over town if they really, if they want to prioritize Town Hall from what they already have, then I have no problem with that, but I have no problem cutting the whole thing.
Pam, Kip?
Whatever. I really,
It's small potatoes.
I
Yeah.
can't even focus on it.
Okay.
It's less than, it's about, just for references, 1/1000th of a mil.
All right, so
So,
let's,
you know,
Pam
let's,
hasn't said, has she?
all right, let's cut it to $5,000 and see what they can do
Where
with
is it?
that.
Why can't I even find it?
Page 11
It's
in
in
the
Public
capital.
Works.
Oh, yeah, oh, no, but, okay.
All right. We
I
talked about.
support that.
Okay, we talked about gear washers. I think we're all set on that. The fire, the gas conversions, we're cutting this year for Noroton and supporting Noroton Heights with the comment to the Board of Finance that we'd like them to bond that.
On the road one.
Yeah. We talked about the fire marshal vehicle, you're gonna do some
I'm gonna talk to the-
investigation on
yeah.
that. Town hall generator, very important project, this has been hanging out there forever. I support the money, but again, with a note to the Board of Finance that they should bond it.
Which one was
The
that?
50 grand.
They already bonded the first.
They already, I think they already
Yeah, they already
bonded the
bonded.
Part was already
250.
approved for bonding.
Right. Gymnasium upgrades. I think there's a couple things in there. Windows
Yeah.
and
The floor?
yeah, the floor. I'm separating the windows from the floor. The floor is kind of routine maintenance. I support the windows, but I think that that should be bonded also,
Yeah.
given the windows in there. They're
Well, and given that it's a long-term.
long-term.
They have
investment.
lasted 40 years.
So-
So I have that at 75,000.
So you want to cut it and suggest to the Board of Finance that they bond that?
Well, I don't want to say cut it. I want
Okay.
to support the expenditure, but financed through bonding.
So one thing that we talked about at Board of Finance, maybe back in the summer, is for them to review the capital list
Yep.
earlier in their process. They used to wait until the end.
Okay?
Review it earlier in the process, identify those things that they think they may want to bond so that we can get resolutions from bond council.
Okay.
And when they vote and they decide that they want to bond it, the budget can move through, the resolutions for bonding can move through, they can all move to the RTM at the same time. So my recommendation would be that you leave it in, and in your presentation and
Okay.
materials, provide a list of, you had discussion and identified these items as perhaps bondable.
Great, perfect, okay.
But bondable projects have to be one that we're actually going to be doing in a
Yes.
year.
Not necessarily.
Well, you don't have that
Because
long
we
time.
can do the authorization and the appropriation, and based on when we actually start doing the project and the timing of the cash flow on that is when we would actually borrow the funds.
But it can't be too long a lag.
You can authorize it and not spend money for
Or we could.
pretty much indefinite. You can have the authorization and appropriation sitting there, but once you start spending the money, you
Then you-
have certain timeframes.
Got it. No, I understand. Okay.
Okay. Short lane construction, I support that. We've been sitting with that parcel of land for a long time. Parks and Rec has done a great job with our internal manpower, but to activate that in a different way would be terrific.
How much is that again?
500,000. And I think that will be such an asset to the
I do
town.
too.
Yep.
The other thing it does, it really, every age group, it can use that. I mean, so many of our things, it's whether it's the youth or the seniors, that really covers everybody.
Is that a pretty much permanent improvement?
Yes.
Yes, and it also allows for future flexibility. So I consider it to be sort of like phase one, but phase one could live on indefinitely if we don't ever move beyond that phase one. Is that an accurate representation, Pam? Okay.
No, I was just wondering if it should be bonded.
Oh, absolutely.
It certainly
I think we
can,
should. Oh, no,
should
definitely.
be, yes.
And if we bond it, I think you had cut some things out of your request originally. I think we should look at, it was another $125,000 that we
For
should
parking?
probably, for the parking,
Yeah.
for a nice parking lot as opposed to just the gravel. So I don't know if you want to consider putting that in or leave that for the Board of Finance to discuss. But if they do decide to bond it, I really think that we should do the whole thing.
Say that again, sorry.
So the whole if we want to do the parking, it's another $125,000.
Okay.
The 500,000 gets us the land improvements. It would leave the parking as is, which is the overflow parking. It's gravel. Yes.
At best, you could call it gravel.
Not even, it's dirt.
Could be mud at times.
I guess I'd like to see the impact of that because we're going to next talk about Highland Farm and
Yeah.
how you feel about Highland Farm. Again, I'd like to get that project
Yep.
underway, complete.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
Instead of like blacktop, there's several places that I've gone that use the rubberized parking that allows the seagrass to grow through there, so.
Pavers, grassy pavers,
Thank
yeah.
you, I wasn't sure what the term. Have we considered that instead for the parking lot? Because that still allows the drainage and the more natural.
We have grassy pavers within that parcel, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily in the parking lot.
That's
It's
what,
in
I know.
It was in the end of where the DGS boats are.
Right,
That
but
was initial.
could we consider that instead of paving?
At Highland
on that?
Farm?
At the.
At Short Lane?
At Short
At Short Lane?
I don't know if that would, how much savings that would be.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about savings, I was
More
thinking of
environmentally friendly.
Well,
environmental and
Yeah.
aesthetics.
So up at Highland Farm, we would be using porous asphalt for that very reason.
And that was also what was proposed for the parking at
Right.
Short Lane.
But certainly, we can look at the cost to doing grassy pavers and look at also the maintenance considerations for that.
Yeah.
You know, you could put forward Short Lane as it is proposed in here.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Pam could do some research on the pavers and address that with the Board of Finance.
Okay.
I also thought you made mention to, when we were at our budget meeting, in regards to the 3 different parking lots, 2 at Highland and this one kind of being grouped together for
Yes.
savings.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that would make some sense if there could be savings by.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that's a good plan, look into the pavers. So you think just supporting the 500,000?
I think if we're going to take a look at the pavers, maybe support the 500,000 now and, you know, raise the issue with the Board of Finance that we are looking at the paving,
Okay.
the optimal solution for paving at Short Lane.
Okay,
But do the whole project if it goes to Board of Finance. I mean,
okay,
if it goes, if it bonded,
okay,
get the
Yeah.
whole thing done.
okay. The sunshade, $15,000, couple of comments on that. I understand that it's needed because it's really hot. Is there any opportunity for a gift for the sunshade? I know it's going to be partially offset, did I hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe it's not that much money to even
Well, the
really care
offset
about.
is.
The offset is about 6,000.
All right. Yeah, so $9,000. Don't feel strongly about it, I guess.
And there are also different,
Okay.
there are some that are, say, 12. I think they range from 12 to 40,000,
Okay.
depending on
And what's the lifespan of,
I believe they're, depending on which ones you get, I mean, you take them in each season, so you're undoing them, taking them away. I would say there's at least.
and
at
can they
least
stay up
15
through
to
our
20.
storms? I mean, is
I don't know.
is this just gonna be another thing for, your
Maintenance.
staff to have to take it?
Well, if we knew a hurricane was coming, couldn't we take it down?
Take it down.
Yeah.
You can take it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that putting one up seasonally would be great for the parents, the kids, everyone's skin. I mean, it is really, really hot. There's nowhere to run.
Well, you've got all the,
And even McGuan, I mean, that's the next one. I mean, it's really, really hot.
McGuan is,
And
I would say,
It needs-
when I think about it with the kids, like, that's the hottest playground, like, every piece of equipment is so hot
It's
there.
so hot.
Where the beach, you could sit under the ledges with the kids and,
But
as
also
a
where they're
mom,
playing is just, so again, I think both sites need
yeah,
something.
McGuan is like, just terrible, like,
Plus it's got black
dangerously
rubber, or
hot.
under, you're playing on top of black rubber, which is even more.
Right.
Okay.
I just feel like with the angles at the beach and with their shade right, the whole pavilion's shade. It's where the kids sit, like, right on the edges there in the shade. But I think people are prepared when they're going down to the beach for shade, where that's some of the
I
parks.
support either of
I know.
them.
Good point.
I don't know why this one kind of, seems like it's gonna have to get taken up and down a lot, is what I would think with the weather.
There's many of those sunshades on the coast, in different parks. So to your point, it's possible if there were that many storms, but again, I think either one. I think Cherry Loans provides many trees for shade. I'm not going to get that far. But when it comes to the lawn, it comes to weed, for roasting and sun.
Okay. Okay to leave it in, everybody?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
We, now moving on to some operating things. You gave us a nice list here of things that we've already discussed, including BOS dues and licenses, $1,125. You had mentioned, I had in my notes a $60,000 cut for Captain Lawler's retirement.
So if you see the next 4
Yes.
lines?
That's
That's-
all inclusive?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Great. We have the EMS equipment maintenance contract, good. Oh, Pam left. I feel bad. I wanted to talk about the recycling containers. I mean, how do we all
Want me to
feel
go
about
chase
that? I'm just concerned about if it's actually going to work. I have a real problem that our park staff is going to sort garbage. But she says they're going to, so. I don't know. I guess we'll give it a try, but
But once we make the investment.
yeah. You know,
How many containers are we going to buy?
I don't think it's many. I want to say it's like 2.
Forgotten.
I guess it'll be a trial.
Well, if it's a
Can't
trial,
rent them, can we?
let's try it.
Because
I mean-
that's the concern, if we buy them.
She did say that the recycling containers that they have at the beaches don't function. So I'm just concerned about it.
I feel like the ones at the beaches a lot of times just, I don't know if people are even sorting. You know, they're sort of,
They
they
don't.
fill up too
That's the problem.
fast.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they just use whatever's
Yeah.
sides available.
What's the amount? Yeah, why?
It's $2,500.
Oh.
I guess we can try it.
I mean, you know me, I'm all for recycling. But I agree with you
Yeah.
on that comment.
Kate and Jen, I'm sorry, I'm going to recommend cutting the $150,000 for pre-funding the accrued leave. But with a note to the Board of Finance that if they want to consider funding an account, then they could look to taking that from general fund reserve. I don't feel comfortable taxing for a future payout, something like that. Sorry. Anybody else?
Well, you're taxing for a future fire
Yeah, well-
engine.
Yeah, it's a little bit different if we
We're
don't.
going to
you know,
pay it one way or another, but maybe the approach would be, as we get towards the end of the fiscal year, if we have positive results from operations this year, perhaps the Board of Finance can see their way to appropriating some money if we have,
Surplus.
if we have surplus
Yep.
funds this year. It's a movement towards actually reducing future costs,
Mhm.
but I understand.
Conceptually, I am 100% on board. It's just the funding mechanism for it that troubles me a little bit because, A, we don't know who's going to retire or when or what the obligation is going to be, but I understand the wisdom of preparing for it. So,
That's one actually that I support, but I think the approach might be different. Which is, it's no different than paying for future retiree medical expenses and other things along those lines. And the question is whether or not it could be actuarially calculated based upon the forward-going retirement age and estimated payment and having some type of reserve there being accrued because it's part of the benefits that you're actually paying out.
What we were trying to accomplish is to pay time at the pay rate at which it is earned, rather than earn it now and get paid out at your 20-year from now pay rate.
Right.
yep.
Right.
So rather than pre-funding it and still paying it at retirement, we want to clear
wanna
it off,
cut it
pay
off
it and
now.
bring it down and
Yeah.
have a more reasonable.
So you could still
Carryover
ask
process.
who's willing to do that and go from there on an annual basis.
We'll work on the Board of Finance for another
Jack,
method
you're
of
actually
funding.
Yeah.
talking us back, we're trying to make a cut and you're talking us.
There's different cuts I support.
We'll take, we'll
Okay.
take,
Wait till you get to revenue.
Okay. All right, and we had a cut, did we have a cut in workers' comp?
yes.
Okay, and, I just need a refresher, I'm sorry, on disaster prep, radio maintenance and repair, that $132,000.
That is
Sorry.
the contract for all the radios.
Yep.
Where we have to, and I did not get a chance to talk to Mark today.
Okay.
But the service contract we originally had is, when we built the PD, we got a 5-year contract. It was part of the cost of the building. We now have to pick it up, and it's a big expense, high-level contract, because according to Mark, we have to match, our agreement must match the state's
Thank
level.
you. Okay.
I remember now.
It
Yeah.
includes, includes a lot of things would get replaced if we need them,
Mhm.
which is why it's so expensive.
Mark put it as to comply with State of Connecticut Interoperability Controller.
Thank you.
Oh,
It's called a state mandate.
It's a mandate.
okay, but
It's
I can
also a
see
way
they
to
want the
squeeze the
radios
lieutenant
to work
out of
together.
having
Yeah.
the communication system, I would think.
Probably.
Okay, we had just that little question about the, with regard to Public Works revenue for textiles we had some information missing. I don't know if you ever were able to find out. Was it last year?
$6,000, something like that.
Yeah. Not a big deal, but,
We didn't put a revenue item in?
yeah, it's
It was
missing from the
missing,
budget.
that's all.
Okay.
That's all.
I think I missed that as a note, so
Okay.
we'll talk to them.
And looking at your debt service, the projects funded by debt service, what's happening with the shed at the high school?
Nothing at the moment.
Bless you. I will say they've moved the containers, obviously from when they were working on them, and they've moved, it looks so much nicer up there.
Okay, good,
Huge improvement.
great. I think Jack had the question about underestimating investment income. Is that a Board of Finance? Will they address that at their level?
Well, yeah, I did not want to address it at my level. I felt that I wanted to remain conservative.
Okay,
And, but I think if the Board of Finance wishes to increase it, and if the Board of Selectmen wishes to increase it, yes, this is, my proposal was to stay conservative.
okay.
I can add that in our minor meeting that we had with several members of F&D, we feel strongly that that is underfunded at this time.
Okay,
I mean, underestimated.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, significantly.
Not
Okay.
underfunded,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if I have a recommendation for increasing the budgeted revenue for that.
I'll forward you something that
Okay.
Bert wrote up.
Okay. Like to put in all of Highland Farm? I
Absolutely.
think we talked about that.
Yes.
Everybody good with that?
Definitely.
Kind of mitigates some of the cuts, but that's all I had for this evening.
Were there
Anybody
any
else?
thoughts on the motorcycle at the police department?
Oh, yes. In speaking to the chief today, we talked about it, and basically, in filling the traffic enforcement slot, the person he wants to fill that slot does not have motorcycle experience. So they're going to go another route in terms of, he said, they have other vehicles that they can provide. Actually, I think what he said was other means of transportation, and I was thinking like a bicycle. I tell you, like a horse, what, you know?
I've seen it, you know.
But, so we can cut the $5,000 for the motorcycle.
Oh, good.
Small, but
50, sorry, 5,300.
Okay. All right.
And
What
then
else?
what's the basketball court, did we talk about?
I don't think that's funded this year.
That was
I
put
did
in
not
this year.
propose funding it
Yeah.
this
Okay.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I should come where you gotta put it off.
okay. What else? Anybody else have any modifications to recommend?
My hotspots.
Going
No,
once.
I mean, I've gone over it and over every, like, department in town hall, where else could we possibly either merge or look to combine? And so much of, in this building is state mandated, I feel like. We have so little to say on any of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some services we provide that are not necessary, but there's services that the citizens want. And at least at this time, we can afford to provide. And I think we continue to look for efficiencies.
Yes.
But a lot of times what the efficiencies do is allow us to provide more services with the same personnel, we never get to the point where we can reduce that.
What they're doing in the state is the nonprofits are saying, let us do more, and you guys can do, the state can do less. And it may come down, but right now, we can afford to do what we're doing, and it's good services. So I would continue on this pathway.
Okay.
Yeah, I spent most of my time on the Capitol, and we did that again tonight, and, I don't have anything new to add.
Okay. Going once, going twice. All right.
So next question is, do you want to cancel tomorrow night's meeting and just wrap it up next week, or do you want to keep to tomorrow night's meeting?
We're scheduled to vote on our budget on February 12th. So I don't really feel like we need tomorrow night. We don't have anything more to discuss. We'd like to be having the meeting on the civilian dispatchers. There's a little bit more information that we need to get. So I actually think we can handle it all on the 12th, if everybody agrees with that.
I agree.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so for everybody here and those listening from home, we are canceling the Wednesday, February 6th Board of Selectmen budget deliberations. I really want to thank everybody for coming, for paying attention to our budget, especially to the students. Thanks so much. It's the first time we've had students in the audience, which is awesome. And Kate and Jen, if you could maybe circulate to us a refreshed modifications list, that would be great.
Yeah?
Would you also like me to put together a list of the bond recommendations?
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes.
And I'm thinking one column that shows budgetary impact and one column that shows like total project. Because it's not always the same.
Yes. Okay.
You
As
know,
much
like total
information
amount
as
to be
you'd like to
bonded
give.
versus what the budgetary impact is.
That'd be great.
Next
Yeah,
year's
that's-
budget.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Can I say-